is here, and we're starting with Greece, an agreement to pay the next instalment of its bailout loans.
Yes, Eurozone finance ministers, along with Greece's other international lenders, have agreed to pay the next 6.8 billion euros worth of Greece's bailout. The first instalment of 4 billion will be paid this month. That's to help Greece avoid a default on debt it has to refinance in August. But to get the money, Athens had to agree to some controversial public sector job cuts, as Luke Schrager now explains.
6.8 billion euros for cash-strapped Greece after its European paymasters agreed to hand out the next tranche of bailout funding.
We got the approved package that we had in the May program, so we are fully satisfied. Well, of course, if somebody wants to give us 10 more billion, we would welcome this.
Chiefs from the European Commission, Central Bank and International Monetary Fund weren't so amused, however. Despite agreeing to a schedule over dispersing the funds in the months to come, they've taken a dim view of Greece's slow progress in instituting the austerity measures it agreed to in return for its bailout. Measures that have in part left more than a quarter of the population out of work.
It's time to step up the momentum of reform in Greece to support the return of confidence for the sake of sustainable growth and job creation.
That's unlikely to gain much traction with many ordinary Greeks. They're looking at massive public sector job cuts and yet further tax increases.
It's not fair that I'm getting fired at the age of 51. They're throwing me on the garbage after I've worked so hard.
With the government seeking to put 4,000 civil servants out to pasture by the end of the year and redeploy a further 25,000, Greek unions are calling for major strike action.
Let's have a look now at how the markets are trading this Tuesday. In a positive start to the day in Europe. All the main markets in the green. Interesting to watch shares in the oil company Shell, though. They've announced that downstream director Ben van Beurden will replace Peter Voser as CEO when he retires next year. Their shares opened up 0.45%. In London, over in Asia, better than expected data on Chinese inflation soothed investor worries about a slowdown in the world's second largest economy. Japan's Nikkei leading the gains there, up over 2%.
And here in France, the government is to unveil details of a major public investment plan later.
Yes, it's called the Future Investment Programme. 10 billion euros it's worth over 10 years. The French government has chosen to invest in 4 key areas. The digital economy, a move towards renewable energy, health and transport. Now, the idea is to try and help maintain France's struggling industrial sector. They've shed thousands of jobs in that area over the past year alone. The spending is coming at a difficult time for the French government, though they're trying to tighten belts and bring down that budget deficit. The latest figures out here on Tuesday showing that deficit went up again in May to just under 73 billion euros.
OK, and well, let's take a look now at some of the day's other business stories. The British Finance Minister has promised to introduce a criminal offence that could see reckless bankers jailed for up to 10 years. George Osborne also wants to see tighter control of bonuses. He was responding to a parliamentary report on banking standards. The government has pledged to include some of its recommendations in a new law regulating banks.
A group of 70 retailers and clothing makers have promised to inspect conditions in their factories in Bangladesh after the fire at a plant in April that left more than 1,200 people dead. It's mainly European companies that have signed up to the legally binding plan, including H&M, Benetton and Carrefour. There are just 3 US signatories on the list.
And the head of American bookseller Barnes & Noble has resigned after poor sales of its e-reader Nook. William Lynch's departure is part of a management shake-up at the struggling company. Its e-reader division lost $177 million in the last quarter, while the company as a whole lost almost $120 million.
And sales of the British retailer Marks & Spencer rose by 3.3% in the 3 months to the end of June. The increase was driven by a rise in food sales, while the company sold less in its clothing and homewares departments. Sales outside the UK rose by 8.7%, although the company says the economic difficulties in Europe are continuing to hit revenues.
And finally, a new owner for a landmark London building.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Lloyds building in the City of London. It's known as the Inside Out building. It's got lift shafts and ducts all on the outside, quite similar to the Pompidou Centre here in Paris. It's been sold to the Chinese insurance company Ping An for £260 million, just over 300 million euros, 30 million more than it was sold back in 2005. So a new owner for an important London landmark.
OK, thank you very much for that. That was Stephen Carroll there. Time now to take a look at the international press.